It was initially hard to shake the idea that Atomfall is just a Fallout clone set in England based on the premise of it, but that would just be unfair in this game. Sure, there are elements that can be compared between the two, and the head design of the game has come out and said that inspiration was drawn from Fallout New Vegas due to feeling that out of all in the series, it was the one that valued player choice the most. And it's safe to say that player choice does play a big factor when playing Atomfall. Atomfall is a new action survival game developed and published by Rebellion Developments, who are best known for Sniper Elite series, and has been released on both Xbox and PlayStation generation consoles as well as PC. It is set in the north of England in the 1960s, following a disaster at the nearby Winskill nuclear plant, which was an actual real life event I came to find out. The game explores an alternate reality, with the surrounding areas being heavily affected by the disaster and has been locked down in a quarantine zone, or just a zone as the locals refer to it as, by the government and army. The player assumes the role of an unknown person who wakes up in a bunker with no memory of how they got there. There are no markers on the map, and the only quest showing is to escape the zone, which is easier said than done. This is where Atomfall differs from other similar games, in that you're not inundated with icons on the map off the bat. The game wants the player to put on their Sherlock Holmes cap and use a lead system, which involves the player speaking with NPCs who are also stuck in the zone, or by finding one of the many notes scattered around the world, to unravel a piece of lore and often unlock clues that will lead to the next location. Even then, permanent markers are still not added to the map, and it just shows main, rumoured locations that you can go to in hopes of finding your next lead. You also find the discovered leads sometimes only give you map coordinates, so where the next piece of information can be found. I did find that a little annoying because, unless I missed it, the coordinates are only displayed on the screen when laying down a marker, so it can be a bit trial and error finding the exact location. Atomfall is not a complete open world, but is instead split into 5 main areas, which are the initial area of Slatendale, Castlefield Woods, Skellermoor, Wyndham Village and the Interchange. All maps are a fairly good size with lots to explore, with Wyndham Village being a sort of hub place where you'll find most of the NPCs in the game you can speak to. The Interchange is the underground location scientists were using for testing under the cover of the Winskill plant, and a location you'll get very familiar with as the game goes on. There are also a number of small locations to be explored, such as bunkers out in the world, and shops in Wyndham Village which are separated from the main location by a loading screen. One annoyance I have when traversing the world is that there's no fast travel. Maybe the annoyance stems from being spoiled by most open world games having this feature, but I did feel at times it would have been helpful here. As I said, the maps are not massive, but a fairly decent size, and it can take some time to get from one side to the other getting around the terrain and hostile enemies. I had an example where I thought it thoroughly searched around a certain location, left it, and eventually got to the other side of the map, where I was asked to go back there and find something, which I painstakingly did, but it was pretty time consuming. Maybe blissful ignorance, but I want to believe it wasn't there the first time, but either way, fast travel would have been really helpful in this situation. Going back to the enemies, each location has its main enemy type ranging from the outlaws, which have taken control of the open areas, the druids who are the crazed people of the woods who can hear voices, and the soldiers who have called themselves Protocol who are patrolling Wyndham Village and have set up camp in Skellermoor. Most enemies act the same, and the main difference is the weapons they'll use to attack you. The soldiers are obviously armed, so will shoot if getting into conflict, while the druids will opt for bows and arrows as well as melee weapons. Speaking of weapons, the game has a good range of them. These go from melee ones such as blades and a cricket bat, we are in England after all, throwable items such as grenades and Molotov cocktails, ranged weapons like bows and arrows, and firearms such as pistols and rifles. When you first find firearms out in the wild, these were classed as rusty. While still effective, you might not be able to use them to their full potential. These can be found or upgraded later to the mid-tier condition, which is stock, or even to pristine, which is their best condition. Personally, I didn't use firearms outside of the odd occasion and in the late game. Don't get me wrong, they can be useful and headshots are actually one-hit kills, but I just found my accuracy was all over the place, so probably more a me issue, and ended up opting in to use a cricket bat for most of the game, as it was pretty strong. I did enjoy using the bow and arrow however, and it was useful when trying to be stealthy, and I say trying in capital letters. The game does technically have a stealth mechanic, but found it a bit so-so. You can sneak up behind an enemy and press a button which will take them down in a stealthy manner, but I found the process of trying to get close to an enemy to be pretty ineffective. I found enemies spot you a lot easier than in most video games, and combine that with the fact that you move pretty slowly when in a crouching position, so I found on a number of occasions that at the time I got to the enemy, they, or one of their friends, had turned around and saw me just casually sidling towards them. I did find that even if you did manage to perform a takedown on an enemy, it's not really that stealthy initially, and can attract others nearby, which kind of defies the purpose in my opinion. You can unlock a skill that makes this process quieter, but I'll talk about skills later. There is also the good old video game trope of hiding in grass, which always annoys me for how stupid it feels that no one can see you. The easiest way to deal with threats is just to go in swinging, or shooting. Melee combat is pretty basic and a bit clunky, with attacks limited to a light attack, heavy attack and a kick to knock enemies back. There is no dodge mechanic in place, so the best you can do is to try and move to the side or backwards and hope the enemy doesn't hit you, especially when they come in with a jumping strike which ends up staggering you. Even on the normal recommended difficulty I was playing on, combat encounters can get quite tricky when multiple enemies are involved. You can't take much damage before it's game over, but at least it's the same with the damage the enemies take. To be fair, a lot of combat encounters can be avoided as the game uses a 3-level detection system. When first spotted, the detection icon will show white in the direction of the enemy. You'll usually get them shouting at you to back off, and if you get far enough away, you continue on your merry way. If you stay in their sights and get closer, the meter will fill and turn orange. They still won't attack at this point, but the threats will get more hostile. The final stage is red, and that's when they come at you. The only time that the meter goes straight to red is when in a restricted area and you are classed as trespassing, which is displayed at the top of the screen. The game is branded as being a survival game, but there really are very little elements to be found in other survival games. You only really need to manage health, stamina, crafting and inventory management. The player's stamina is shown next to the health bar and acts as a heart rate that will rise as the player runs, jumps or attacks. When full, the screen slightly darkens and it's hard to hear surrounding enemies as you get the sound of the heartbeat racing. It doesn't take long to go back down though when just going back to a walking pace. For crafting, materials can be found all over the world which can be used to make some useful items. The only caveat is that you need to find the recipe for crafting items except bandages which will be given to you right at the beginning. Luckily I found that recipes can be found in multiple places so you're not confined to having to go to a certain location for them. All crafted items and most things picked up around the world will be added to your inventory. The inventory is made up of 12 slots for small items such as small weapons, health items and buffs. There are also 4 larger slots that will usually be taken up by larger weapons such as rifles and the aforementioned cricket bat. There are also a few tools you can pick up which will be shown at the bottom of the inventory screen, but these are exclusively for those items. 4 items can also be assigned to directions on the D-pad for quick selection. These only appear to be limited to weapons and not healing items, which is a bit annoying. To heal, you need to go into your inventory and select the items manually, but be aware that the game doesn't pause when in the inventory, so if being attacked, they will still do so when you're in there. Another tip is to not add the torch to the quick select option, even if it's tempting, as there are a lot of dark areas. If you press Y on Xbox or triangle on PlayStation, this switches to the torch no matter what you're holding, so assigning to quick select is just a waste. I do kind of wish there were more inventory space available though, as I always found myself out of it. I filled some of the slots with items such as antidotes and burn cells that I really didn't need during my playthrough, though that could have been the way I played, but wanted to keep them just in case so it took up unnecessary space. This meant I had to just pass by a lot of discovered items as I had no space for them. You can find pneumatic tube type things in most of the bunkers that can be used to store items that can also be accessed from other locations in the world. Found it helpful for storing weapons I didn't want to just drop. Crafting materials and ammunition also get maxed out, but these luckily don't take up any space. Merchants can also be found in certain locations. They will hold general items as well as some that may be useful to continue or finish off a lead. The merchants work on a bartering system where you need to offer up items they deem to be an equivalent value to what you're wanting. This can take a bit of trial and error and can mean that you have to sacrifice a lot just to buy a single item. Or you can just go behind the merchant, use a takedown and steal the items from them. Atomfall doesn't restrict on what NPCs you can take out, which includes those that may be vital to a major lead, so just be careful with that. As mentioned earlier, skills can be unlocked and these are broken down to 4 sections: ranged combat, melee combat, survival and conditioning. Skill points are gained by picking up training stims which are usually found in bunkers or soldier related areas. Also, not all skills are available from the beginning and more get unlocked by finding training manuals. You just have the usual fun of deciding what is best for you. Overall, it took me just over 20 hours to complete the game for the first time, and that was me taking my time and exploring everything, and maybe failing miserably a few times. The game does have multiple endings and I've only seen one so far, but looking forward to going back and trying the rest. As I said at the beginning, as much as it is hard to shake the similarities with Fallout, it's unfair to Atomfall to compare the two. Sure, Atomfall is not as polished as Fallout, though it is fair to say Fallout has its own number of issues. Atomfall is trying to do its own thing and has many elements incorporated to try and stand on its own. The environment looks really nice, a load of interesting NPCs, and an intriguing mystery of a story. I did experience a couple of glitches, such as the enemy warping a couple of feet to the left and the AI getting in the way of each other when trying to cross a narrow bridge, but that was really it. There were some graphical problems like when going into the menus and some textural issues, but but I was playing on the Xbox One S, so that's potentially part of the issue. I would give Atomfall a 7 out of 10. I would say it's worth a try, especially if you have Xbox Game Pass or find it for a really good price. Thank you for watching. It would be greatly appreciated if you could drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Catch you in the next video.